There are few creatures more absurdly horrifying than the Abyssal Chicken. This beast appears to be the infernal love child of a chicken and a bat, though no one with common sense would mistake it for a barnyard animal. Found scuttling through the hellish wastes of the abyss, the Abyssal Chicken is equal parts scavenger, predator, and nightmare fuel. It has no beak, only a hideous gaping maw, and its wings, leathery and clawed, fold above it and slap together with the sound of wet flesh colliding, allowing it to fly short distances. But its preferred method of movement is running at its prey at full speed with its powerful taloned feet. Despite its terrifying appearance, however, the Abyssal Chicken is a surprisingly common staple of abyssal cuisine. It breeds prolifically, can subsist on nearly anything, and most importantly, it's great to eat if you can get past how it looks. Demonic warbands roast them over open flames, dragons devour them raw, and certain cultists have even domesticated them for their eggs, which are best described as an acquired taste. For adventurers braving the abyss, an Abyssal Chicken may be the safest option on the menu, assuming you can look away while the cook is at work. But how does one prepare such an interesting creature? And more importantly, how does it taste? Let's dig in. If you've ever butchered a chicken before, you might think an Abyssal Chicken would be a straightforward task to butcher as well. You'd be dead wrong. Unlike its mundane counterpart, an Abyssal Chicken does not go quietly into the pot. Even after death, its twitching body can lurch violently, and its muscles often spasm due to residual abyssal energy. Some chefs recommend stunning it with a brief exposure to radiant light before handling to ensure it stays still. Others say a second death blow, just to be sure, is a wise precaution, and maybe a third and fourth as well. Once the creature is truly, unequivocally dead, the real work begins. Unlike a normal chicken, an Abyssal Chicken does not have feathers. It has a rubbery, leathery hide, more akin to a bat or a particularly angry toad. The skin is riddled with small spines and pustules that excrete a foul-smelling, slightly caustic slime. Before butchering, it's best to rinse the body with purified water, or wipe it down with a vinegar and salt solution to neutralize the slime. Some infernal cooks recommend a light flame searing, which has the added benefit of loosening the hide for removal. Using a sharp knife, make an incision along the underside of the creature between its legs, and carefully peel back the hide. Unlike a bird, the skin is thick but highly elastic, and it peels away in a disturbingly smooth sheet. Some more adventurous chefs have experimented with deep frying it, but most would agree that tossing the hide is not a huge loss. Next, we need to gut the beast. The Abyssal Chicken, like many creatures of the abyss, eats just about anything. Its stomach contents are best not examined too closely, as they can range from bits of bone and demon gristle to more unsettling, unidentifiable remains. Carefully slice open the abdomen and remove the organs, taking special care not to rupture the stomach or bile sac. Both release a noxious black ichor that, if spilled on the meat, can render it nearly inedible. The heart is often shockingly large for the size of the creature, and some believe this is due to the creature's unnatural metabolism. If properly cleaned, it can be roasted or fried as a delicacy, much like the heart of a traditional bird. The liver, on the other hand, is heavily infused with abyssal toxins and not recommended for consumption, unless you happen to be a fiend yourself, in which case, bon appetit. The remaining internal cavity should be rinsed thoroughly, ideally with a blessed water or a high-proof spirit. Brandy, whiskey, or even a particularly strong dwarven ale works well. This neutralizes any of the lingering residue and, more importantly, gets rid of that annoying funk that is commonly associated with any abyssal creature. At this stage, the Abyssal Chicken finally starts to resemble something edible. The body can be broken down into some familiar cuts. The breast meat is surprisingly tender and the most normal part of the bird, best suited for roasting, grilling, and frying. The legs and thighs are slightly gamier and much more muscular than a traditional chicken, requiring longer cooking times. These are best braised or slow cooked. The wings are large slabs of cartilage, but if you're dedicated, they can be deep fried into crispy little hellish morsels, or slow cooked in water to render down into stock. And speaking of stock, the neck and back lend a deep, almost umami-rich flavor with a slightly sulfuric aftertaste. The first time you bite into an Abyssal Chicken, you might be convinced that there's no difference from the feathered fowl you've eaten growing up. But as you continue to process the flavor a little bit, you'll realize this is not a light, neutral meat, that takes on the flavor of the sauces that it's smothered in. No, Abyssal Chicken demands your attention, with a richness that lingers on the tongue and sets it apart from any bird on the material plane. It has a deep, charred smokiness to it, even before it's cooked. Some theorize this comes from its environment in the abyss, where fire and brimstone are just as common as air and water. Others believe it's the creature's natural defense mechanism, subtly hinting, you really shouldn't be eating this, even if it's totally fine to eat. Either way, expect a roasted, almost smoked quality to the meat, regardless of your cooking method. Beyond the smokiness, the flavor is rich and gamey, similar to duck or pheasant, but denser and more intense. The muscle fibers are tight and lean, which makes sense as it's an active, constantly moving creature. But unlike standard chicken, there is no white meat and dark meat distinction. It's all dark meat the whole way through. And then there's the aftertaste. While properly cleaned and cooked, Abyssal Chicken is perfectly safe to eat. It retains a faint metallic, almost sulfuric tang that some describe as a little unsettling. It's not necessarily unpleasant, but it does serve as a reminder that this meat doesn't quite belong to the world that most of us inhabit. Some even compare it to the aftertaste of well-aged blue cheese or overcharred steak fat. Abyssal Chicken is far denser and chewier than most birds, bordering on the texture of rabbit or even venison. The legs and thighs in particular can be almost gelatinous when slow cooked, as their connective tissue breaks down into an incredibly rich, unctuous bite. Meanwhile, the breast meat, while more tender, still retains a firm, almost beef-like chew. One unusual quirk of Abyssal Chicken is that it doesn't dry out the way normal poultry does. Even when roasted or grilled, the meat will remain juicy. Though the kind of juiciness depends on your preparation. Cook it too hot and quickly and the fats release a slightly acrid, sulfuric scent, reminding you once again this is not your average chicken dinner. Make sure you cook it low and slow. But once again, this is assuming you cook it at all. And also assuming you have a working brain. Let's say either you do not, or you enjoy testing your constitution for absolutely no reason at all. Raw Abyssal Chicken is a death wish, plain and simple. While certain Abyssal cults claim that eating it raw unlocks forbidden flavors, what it actually unlocks is a series of constitution saving throws you don't want to fail. That said, some warlocks and thrill-seeking gourmands insist that flash searing the outer layers and leaving the inside mostly raw creates an ethereal, otherworldly experience. I'll let them be the ones to enjoy that. If the meat of an Abyssal Chicken is a slightly acquired taste, then its eggs are a true taste of culinary bravery. Unlike mundane chicken eggs, which are prized for their versatility and mild flavor, Abyssal Chicken eggs are dense, pungent, and unapologetically sulfuric, even before they hit the pan. They're best compared to century eggs or heavily aged duck eggs, carrying a deep richness that many find intriguing, but just as many find absolutely revolting. But for those willing to embrace their unique qualities, they hold incredible potential in both cooking and alchemy. Let's crack one open and see what we're dealing with. Abyssal Chicken eggs look almost unnatural, even by Abyssal standards. The outer shell is a deep burnt red or black, often with faint vein-like patterns that glow softly in dim light. Some say this glow pulses when the egg is particularly fresh, though whether or not that's a good or bad sign depends on your perspective. The egg white, if you can call it that, is thick, viscous, and slightly gelatinous, ranging from an opaque dark gray to a sickly greenish hue. It carries an almost leathery texture when raw, and when cooked it firms up into something closer to jelly than egg white. The yolk is dense and oily with a deep golden orange hue that borders on amber. When broken, it exudes a strong sulfuric aroma, reminiscent of rotten eggs, fermented fish sauce, and a hint of wood smoke. The longer it sits exposed to air, the darker and more pungent it becomes, eventually taking on an almost tar-like consistency. With these descriptions, it might not sound particularly appetizing, but properly prepared Abyssal Chicken eggs are considered a luxury in some cultures, especially among demons, orcs, and goblins who view their intense flavors as a sign of culinary strength. While eating the meat of an Abyssal Chicken raw is a death wish, the eggs are actually completely safe to consume without cooking. That being said, it's definitely an adrenaline rush. The overwhelming sulfuric punch can hit the nose before it even reaches your mouth. The flavor is intensely briny, with deep fermented notes that call to mind overripe cheese in the inside of a volcanic cave. It's thick, oily, and lingers on the palate long after consumption. Some describe the taste as like licking the bottom of a charred cauldron that used to hold fish stew. Others simply gag and refuse to elaborate. Let's leave you with one of my favorite recipes for using abyssal chicken, and that's specifically using the eggs. Steamed abyssal chicken egg with blood sausage. This is a favorite among abyssal kitchens all over, and it's often served as a hearty breakfast or a bold late-night meal for those with strong stomachs, and an appreciation for deeply aged flavors. The first step is to crack the abyssal eggs into a bowl, being mindful of their thick, gelatinous whites, and working them quickly before the yolk degrades in color and smell. Aged black vinegar and fermented black bean paste are whisked into the eggs, both to balance their strong notes and enhance their deep flavors. Meanwhile, a steaming pot is prepared, ensuring the water is kept at a gentle simmer rather than a roiling boil. The egg mixture is poured into a heat-proof dish and covered and carefully placed into the steamer. Cooking at low heat for 15 to 20 minutes ensures the eggs are set into a silky, delicate custard without turning rubbery. While the eggs steam, blood sausage is chopped up and seared in a hot pan with a spoonful of smoked lard or abyssal chicken schmaltz, crisping the edges while allowing the rich, spiced interior to warm through. A splash of dark ale or fortified wine is added to the pan, helping deglaze and create a flavorful sauce that coats the sausage. Once reduced, a dusting of smoked paprika, ground cumin, and dried abyssal pepper is sprinkled over the sausage. When the eggs are firm but still jiggly in the center, they're removed from the steamer and arranged on a plate, then topped with the crisp blood sausage. The dish is finished with a scattering of thinly sliced scallions and paired with strong dark ale or aged whiskey to cut through its intensity. Yes, even for breakfast, you're in the abyss after all. Abyssal chicken is a bit of a divisive meat. Some diners appreciate its robust, smoky richness, while others find its slightly unnatural qualities unsettling. But like most extreme flavors, it has a dedicated fan base, particularly among adventurers, and especially the ones who pack too little rations and find themselves knee-deep in situations they shouldn't be, also just known as adventurers. Even if you aren't interested in the culinary extremes, with a bit of trickery in the kitchen, this meat can be passed off as mundane. So, whether you dress it up to placate the pickiest members of your party, or you lean into its culinary proclivities, it is a great source of nourishment when you're raiding the abyss. And who knows, maybe you'll like it so much that you miss it when you make your way back home. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want this information for your own table, the formatted PDF can be found below on my Ko-fi for free. As always, let me know if you have any requests, and feel free to join the Discord to chat with the little community we've built.